All right. Hello and welcome everyone. We are live with this brand new series called Redefining Customer Journey Management. It's December 16, 2020. And given the huge turn up today, 170 CX professionals from all over the world, something is in the air, clearly. My name is Jochem van der Veer. I'm the co-founder of TheyDo. We're a software platform for journey management, and we're designed for fast alignment and smart decision making. And my co-host today, Harald, is the founder and managing director of Essence, a CX consultancy specialized in customer journey-driven innovation. Now, there's no doubt that there's a match between us, but while great tools and consulting go hand in hand, this is not really the reason why we are here today. There's something happening in our domain, and that is the domain of customer experience. And if 2020 was the year where we have gone past journey mapping as a stage, we are now transforming, and we're seeing companies transform towards journey-driven operations. And we've made it our mission to help accelerate this change. So besides accelerating our own clients, of who you will hear more today in a bit, we believe customer journey management is about to become the next thing in business. In this series, it is our mission to bring together world-class CX professionals and learn how they are redefining customer journey management. It's our job to deconstruct their strategies, tactics, and struggles so you can apply the lessons learned in your business too. So, without further ado, let me introduce our guests today. We have four, as you've seen in the invitation, and I'm going to start with Rob Pauw, who is the head of CX at PostNL. And PostNL, for those of you who don't know us, hi Rob. Hello. Hey, good afternoon. PostNL is the #1 mail and parcel logistics company here in the Netherlands, and they have more than 10,000 employees. So Rob, who's responsible for all CX-related activities within consumer, is also driving a pilot for journey teams in the B2B department of PostNL, and we'll hear how he is experiencing that today. Marloes, welcome. Good afternoon from bol.com. Joining us as she's the persona lead for the persona lead for the B2B marketing team. And bol.com, for our international audience today, is like the Amazon of the Netherlands, Belgium, and a little bit of France. And she's responsible for customer-centric marketing. And in 2020, they had a big aha moment that was quite pivotal for their entire team. So we'll hear today what that was and how she is using that insight. We also have Eva van der Veer, beautiful name. We are not related, but what are the odds? And she leads all CX initiatives at Zelfstroom. And Zelfstroom is a scale-up that is driving the energy transition by making solar panels accessible for everyone, rent or buy. And final guest of today is Ruben Meiland, who just got back from the US, where he led the product organization at Eventbrite from 5 to 15 teams. Full disclosure, Ruben is a board member of TheyDo, but that's not the reason he's here today. He is a clear thinker and has built a journey-driven organization from first principles. So together, we'll look into... Good afternoon. Hey, Ruben. We'll look into redefining customer journey management. We also have a special guest, and you already see a screen on your screen at home. And our special guest is Herman, who will visualize our live discussion, putting everything into context, what we say. So even though we like our beautiful faces, Herman is actually going to make visible what we are talking about. So, hello everybody. Hey, Herman. This is a live session. So we encourage you to ask questions during the session. You can use the Q&A in the bottom of the screen. And we're going to do a few polls to see what you find important and to steer us in the right direction. So you can also use the thumbs up and thumbs down if you don't like or really like what we're saying or what Herman is drawing, and we will make sure that you can participate in the discussion. You can also use the chat if that's your preferred way of doing it. That's also fine. But before we dig in, maybe it's good to define customer journey management. And I want you, Harald, to take us through what we mean with customer journey management, because there's a lot of fuzzy terminology in the market. Everyone uses different things. And we want to start by defining it before we dig into the discussion we'll have. So can you take us through what customer journey management means?
Yeah, thanks, Jochem. Of course, there's a lot of topics and aspects that constitute for customer experience and running it properly in an organization. But today we're zooming in a little bit on customer journey management to not make the scope too broad today. So we see customer journey management as consisting of 4 important aspects. First of all, organizing your journeys as a company, like how do you link which journeys are the key journeys for your company strategy, and how do you capture your customer insights in those journeys. So like, what are the 5 or 3 or 1 or 6 or multitude of journeys that really constitute like your strategic direction of your company, yeah? Because that's how you capture your customer experience and how you structure it. So that's one, organizing your journeys. And then secondly is how do you organize your teams around it? So like, okay, you have all these journeys, but basically who's going to operate and work with those journeys? What are the teams? What kind of roles are in those teams? What mandate do they have? Are they virtual teams or are they fixed teams for specific journeys, etc.? So like, there's a lot of team organization aspects related there as well, I think, which is super important also to make sure that customer journey management is not like a side activity, but a core activity. Then thirdly is, okay, once you have those teams, how are they going to collaborate? Like, which disciplines are in those teams and who is in charge? Like, who is basically driving the governance? How is prioritization taking place? What is the collaboration model there? Like, is there a mandate within the journey team, or is it a virtual team that is basically linking to other stakeholders? And how is it reported up in the organization? So like, really collaboration and orchestration of those journeys and how you collaborate between the teams. With some of the panel speakers, we'll talk about this today. I think Rob and his teams, and also Eva at Zelfstroom, I know that giving clear ownership, for example, to certain journey owners is like super important, of course, to make it work. And then fourth is also, once you've done all that, how do you measure, monitor, and document your learnings? So you can have fantastic insights and fantastic teams, but if you don't actually measure the impact, how do you document it? So like, because you also want to learn what works and what worked and what didn't work. And so you become a learning organization, and not if people leave the company, that you keep trying and researching the same things over and over again, but that you basically have a learning company in that. So and we see customer journeys as really the structure that can tie this all together. So basically the service offering where you connect all these 4 pillars. And what we'd like to do is really focus the discussion today around this. Of course, there's also lots of like corporate strategy or company culture or customer-centric mindsets related aspects that are important to make sure that customer experience is successful. But we focus today a little bit more on how you organize around customer journeys on these aspects.
Yeah. So
with that,
maybe we can ask the audience today as well to give us a better understanding where they are in the landscape. So before we go into our panel discussion, we're going to start a poll, which I will relaunch now. And we would like you to fill in what is actually the most important topic for your business now. So the 4 topics that Harald just described were organizing journeys, that's one, organizing journey teams, collaborating across teams and journeys, or monitoring initiatives and documenting insights. So we'll do our best with our panelists today to focus the discussion around the ones that are the most important to you guys today, or maybe all of them are. Let's see, you only have 1 vote. 35% of people have voted, and while everyone's voting, we can enjoy the beautiful drawing of Herman, who is actually making visible what the 4 parts are and how they actually interact with the journey at the center of the center of gravity of your organization. So we have about 62 people voted. If you can't vote, you can also put your vote in the chat. For some reason, if it doesn't work technically, I see that we have 70% voted now. So I think that concludes it. And there is well, there's not a clear winner, but if I now end the poll, I will share the results with you. We see that organizing journeys and collaborating across teams and journeys are pretty much by far the most important topics currently.
Cool. Excellent. So with that, good to see that, you know, there's still room for that people still thinking about how do I organize my journeys? How are their journeys in different departments, or are they overlapping, or is there a company-wide view on which set of journeys we all agree on to operate against? And of course, also then once you have those, how do you collaborate with that? So with that, I'm going to switch to one of our first panel members for today, Rob. I know from collaborating with you and PostNL that you've been working for a long time on driving customer experience within PostNL to organize customer journeys and also around the different teams. Can you maybe describe, if you look back at last few years, you know, how it started and some of the phases it went through to where you are now?
Yes, I can, of course. I think it's always has two sides. It's mainly in the beginning, it's bottom up because customer experience is something new, so nobody heard about it. So some crazy people have to start with it. We started it at the consumer department with journey thinking and working, the first journey owners, the service designers, etc. I think for the last 2.5, 3 years, and with good results and a lot of fans also in the other departments. And now it's really getting a top down. So we started especially for the business department latest April with a big project to get journey thinking and working also in the business department. And actually that's a good thing, because if the top is also behind it, it gets more traction. So this project is really a big one. And it's also, we call it a journey factory. So we are trying to make a real factory with a standard way of working, with standard roles in teams, with pure dedication, and also with a lot of focus. What is the upside for the company in NPS or KTV, but also in cost reduction and in extra value.
Yeah. So I know in the beginning it was mainly driven from a digital design and online team, and now your CIO Marcel Krom is even been announced CIO of the year, and I heard from you also it's now top down. So would you say it's not only the maturing of the customer journey and customer experience practice, but also the executive support that top down have realized that organizing this way have both contributed to the progress on this front?
Yes, Marcel is a big fan of how we're working, and also made this digital next program where it is a substance of made it possible. So because he wants to build very good IT, and if you want to build very good IT, you have to understand what is good to build. And well, I think a lot of companies struggle with that, but at PostNL we've seen the light, and so we make a difference in the what do you say, the preparing teams, the journey teams, and then when it's finished, the features that has to be built can go to the building teams. But Marcel is a big support over there. Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. Before you build a house, you need the architect. So that makes a lot of sense, Rob. Anything else that you want to mention on this? That you mentioned you started with consumer, and now you're piloting into B2B as well. Do you see any major differences there, or is it just a maturing process?
No, it's a huge difference, because in our consumer department we could do it on ourselves mainly, but when the whole company is involved, there are a lot of cross cross BU and cross consumer business journeys at PostNL. So we thought about things as dual ownership. So some journeys has a consumer side and a business side. So dual ownership, they have to find it out together. Which standard roles and which dedication is needed. That is really well, taking a big step. So professionalizing, I think you have to do it good after a while. Yep.
So what you're actually saying is like the department walls are starting to break down as journeys go across the virtual walls. So Ruben, when we did research for this session, you, for instance, mentioned like the journey is actually the one stable factor. And when we look at PostNL as a B2B and a B2C organization, you face different challenges at Eventbrite, where you mentioned that we had product, you had product marketing, you had marketing, everyone had their own journey. What did it mean for you that the journey was the one stable factor in this context?
Yes. So just a bit of context on my position as well. Like there's a lot of similarities, Rob, that I recognize from what you're saying. Terms like BU, business units, and we were quite a large organization. The difference, though, is for us is that I came into an organization where customer centricity was sort of in the DNA of the company, being advocated by executives. So senior management was really aware of the importance of customer centricity, and that trickled down into the whole organization. So whether it's product or CX or sales, like everybody was fully aware that we needed to keep the customer front and center of every decision that we made. The challenge I ran into, though, Jochem, as we talked about, is when I came into the company was split into different business units, and it was sort of like, here are your 5 teams. You are now responsible for the B2B side of the product. Good luck with it. So there was no cohesion in those teams. It was just like 5 random teams. There was a team focusing on a mobile app, and one was working on onboarding, and one was SEO. So it was sort of a mix of teams. And somewhere along the journey, we IPO'd, so we went public, which generated a lot of cash in the company. And basically, the CEO sat down with me and said, we want to invest in a department, but how are you going to scale? Like, how, do you have a plan to scale your department? And my honest answer was, well, not really, but let me think about it. So I started talking to, first I started sketching on a whiteboard. It's like, okay, so how do I sort of make a plan from these 5 teams? What makes sense, and how can I organize these teams in such a way that it allows me to scale? And then, scaling in my situation meant I had teams across 3 different continents. So like I needed to create alignment, communication, and then they need to work in the same direction. So how could I sort of create that situation for the teams?
Was there a clear leadership involved? Was the leadership at your department, at product team, or was it somewhere else? Like Rob has clear CX focus, which is broad, but was that something that you had at Eventbrite as well?
Well, it was leadership per business unit, I would say. So within the business unit, there was leadership, and then within that business unit, you can see it as sort of like a mini company within a company. And I was sort of the CPO for the B2B side of the business. I'm using a lot of acronyms, but I'm assuming that the audience knows all these abbreviations. There was definitely support from senior management.
Ruben, I'm interested to hear you indicate, I guess, that customer journeys could also have helped basically create focus within these teams, so that you don't have one team doing an app and another team doing something else, and without realizing how it all contributes to each other. Has it also succeeded in bringing efficiencies internally in terms of doing less things that you don't need, or doing them more effectively? Can you talk to that a bit, or?
I think mainly in terms of efficiency, I would say, because if you give teams ownership of a specific stage of a customer journey, then and you make sure that they're really close to the customer and they truly understand like that part of the customer journey, and you give them autonomy, you make it a cross-functional team. In our case, that meant like product engineering, design, but also like I tried to incorporate CX in that team as well, a data analyst, a UX researcher. It was a luxury position because it was a big company and we had all these different people for different positions, but they were truly cross-functional teams. And they were able to really dig deep into the issues that customers were facing in those different steps of the journey, and also come up with sort of holistic solutions to those problems.
Yeah. And one final question before I think it's a good bridge to Eva in a second. But was ownership? Did you manage to effectively assign ownership there as well? I can imagine that. And when everybody's kind of responsible for everything, it also becomes sometimes a problem that nobody's responsible for anything. So how did you make that transition?
Well, honestly, it is challenging because what we ended up with is almost sort of a hybrid model where we said that we called them lifecycle teams. So they were part of they had the ownership of part of the lifecycle. But imagine if we also had strike teams, we call them. It was sort of more like project-based teams that were like, okay, now we need to fix things that could go across different stages of the customer journey. So we need to work with those teams and align with those teams, align our OKRs to make sure that we're working in the same direction, but came up with sort of a hybrid model in that sense. So there's, we kept learning.
That's a good bridge to Eva from Zelfstroom, and small mid-sized company, 200 people. I'm not sure if it's small or mid-sized. I guess it's in between. But one thing I remember from you, Eva, saying is that we started the customer journey project as a project, but then realized it's not a project; it's everything we do, and it basically was both exciting but also a shock because we realized, oh, this is changing how we work. Can you maybe speak to a little bit to that?
Yeah, that's right. Maybe good to mention that before I started the customer journey project, I have been working as the manager of a customer support team in an interim role for 10 months. So, and in that role, I also did a lot of analysis and tried to gain more insights in questions and complaints that our customers have. So I was really bent after I left that role and went back to business development again. I was really focused on wanting to help those customers in a more structural way instead of just making sure a support team answers their questions one-on-one. So we started as a project, but while we were working on this, we basically realized, one, it's work for everyone in the company. It's not just me or a small team that can do it, especially the managers leading our client-facing teams. We're working way more in a customer-centric way right now. We started on such a good journey ourselves, actually, that it was just a starting point and not a project in terms of something you can do for 2 or 3 months and then you finish it and you deliver a product and that's it.
I remember.
Can you give an example of what your journey is like, how it looks like, and your whole business is a journey? So can you explain to the audience at home, like, what is the Zelfstroom journey?
Yeah, our journey. So we install solar panels. Our mission is to accelerate the energy transition, and we want to inspire as many people and companies to take part in that and to choose for solar energy. And our journey is basically, it starts with marketing. We inform people about what solar panels are, how they can help them, how they can help them save money and take part of this energy transition. Then we have our sales team that advises people more on a one-on-one basis. So people, basically, we are accessible by phone really easily, so people can call us and ask any questions they have, receive a proposal, etc. Then the installation is an important part of the journey as well, because there's quite some planning and preparation before solar panels can be installed. And then people get our app, gain insights, and if they still have any questions after that, they can ask it to our customer support team.
Yeah, that's what I like most about your journey, is that almost your entire core process is one long journey. Whereas, for example, some other companies, maybe Bol.com, Marloes, more likely to be like a multitude of journeys, especially on the B2C front, I know. But that's maybe...
Yeah, it was at the moment that we started the project, but we are scale up and we're growing very fast.
Sure.
So actually, we already noticed right now that we have set up quite some partnerships in the last few months we also offer solar panels now to companies instead of just only consumers. So I think also time-wise, it was a great moment to
get started with
start this project. Yeah.
So I want to zoom out a little bit because we're talking about customer journeys, which is great, but we haven't talked about the actual customers that are having this journey. We're talking a lot about B2C, B2B, marketing, getting our customers to become ambassadors in the energy transition. But who are our customers? And one of the things that we see in the whole context of redefining the customer journey as a management tool, we see also personas resurface again. And I know, Marloes, you had a big aha moment that escalated quite rapidly this year. Can you take us through what that aha moment was and what it means for your organization?
Yes, of course, Jochem, and thank you for having us as well. So the aha moment, and when I'm listening to Eva, Ruben, and the other panel people, then I'm like, oh shit, we're not even there yet. We're not working with the journey teams. We just started, which is actually already super cool. So the aha moment was actually when we started interviewing and doing the workshop with partners. So bol.com is also a platform, and we work together with almost 40,000 different retailers in Belgium and the Netherlands. So we wanted to get to know our partners. And actually bol.com was one of the biggest retailers of the platform before, but it shifts rapidly. The partners do most of our revenue at the moment and help our customers more than we do actually with the assortment they are offering. So we needed to know who these partners were, and instead of mass communication, we wanted to get to know them by doing some workshops and interviews with them. And of course, we have a lot of data available for ourselves. So in big data, we could do different kinds of segmentations of our partners in their revenue, in their assortments, in the categories in which they are selling, all those kinds of segmentation. But we didn't really know their mindset. And actually, that's what our cooperation gave us, that we know the mindset of our partners now. And while we were defining the axis in which you can, get your personas, so we have like 2 axes and 4 types of personas. One of the axes was that retailers can be product-led or brand-led, and that's actually the mindset of them, running their business. So in this case, brand-led retailers are more focused on, building up their brands, developing products. And the product-led personas or retailers are more focused on, being a retailer and being smart doing so, instead of like knowing what they are selling and knowing the product from start till, after sales actually. And that was, something we couldn't ever figure out while looking at our big data. So that's actually the most valuable insight for us in this year.
Yeah, it's super important also to, when we started, we say your customer journeys, and to define what your key customer journeys are is definitely a strategic decision. Yeah, like you need to make sure, like, if this is what we will aim to deliver as a company to our clients, that actually defines what our key journeys are. And then basically from that, it organizes, of course, everything. You then plot your insights, your activities, your priorities, and everything from that. So it's really important also to get that journey framework right at the beginning, I think, to make sure that everything else that follows from that is basically supporting what you're just saying. Can you
exactly, and it's actually helping us. Yeah, so it's actually helping us to facilitate the best platform for the users of the platform. And that's like the key difference, which is super important.
So the next thing for you guys is defining the journey framework. What are our personas doing, and how can we service them better? Well, when we look at PostNL, it seems like you've done this already. What would you say to Marloes? Like, what is a great start, or what would you have given yourself as an advice, like a young Rob who is starting this trajectory? Like, what are the key learnings you took away that can actually really help kickstart this in the right direction?
Well, I think the most important what I would give myself as a present was very good people in the beginning already, because the service designers and the journey owners, which well started over the years at our CX department, they are amazing. They bring in very new skills and a very new attitude, and actually they do the job. They are creating fans in our company by doing really good research, by directly doing it quick, doing it good, bringing along, cooperate with the other marketing or IT teams. So I think that's the most important.
Are they also the owners of the journeys, or are they more like the ambassadors of the mindset?
Well, in the beginning, it was more the service designers are not the owners. That's the journey owners. So they were owner of a complete journey. And actually now there was a lot of work, because a journey for the consumer receiving, well, bol.com understands it's huge. Yeah? So, and now we are breaking up this journey in different journeys. So with 100% dedication, you can do a good job in like 1 or 2 years to really get this journey up and running and make it an NPS of the NPS we want.
Can I zoom in on this one? Because you mentioned something interesting. What I really like to get to the bottom of things for the time being is like breaking up journeys. Where do you cut it? What makes you decide this is where we're going to cut it and this is how we're splitting them up? How do you go about that?
Yeah, well, we call it the journey taxonomy. So the journey is like consumer receiving or consumer sending, but the steps from the perspective of in this phase, the consumer, we break it up, and we make in the taxonomy. So we have a level 1, like I receive, and a level 2, different journeys beneath it. And it's really important to get a taxonomy right, because then you can talk about it and to also get an agreement in the whole company about it, because then you can, well, organize where do we start? What is the most important for a NPS perspective, but also for cost and for revenue? And if you make that priority, then you can bring the company along, because everybody understands, yes, we have to work on this one.
Yeah. I recognize so much what you're saying, Rob. We've also been talking about it, that it's also developing a language and an umbrella together. If you just look at the same image of your journey and to develop the same language to exchange views on it, about it between different departments. For us, that's been, I think, one of the most important things that we've achieved this year.
And have a single set of those journeys. I think what you see often is in the beginning stages of customer journey adoption, you see also that different departments maybe have their own versions of the same journey. And of course, as it matures, you need to go to, I guess, a company-wide agreement on these are the journeys that we operate against, because otherwise you got conflicting activities. And in the end, that's fine in an experimental stage, but at some point, and I think that's also what you're recognizing, Rob, it's really becoming like now how we organize ourselves. So it's no longer basically a project, but basically a team along with it. You say the journey owner is driving it now. How does that link, for example, to product owners delivering epics and stories or scenarios to the market? Are they in those teams, or are they linked to those teams? How does that work?
There are specialists in that team, sometimes for like 40% of their time, and that's working very well, because you need a good dedicated team. But we also have to find out how it will work with other, well, more product-related feature teams. So we just finished our first pilot, so we are still learning, and we have to figure out also some things.
I would say quite advanced, and there's definitely those learnings are still beneficial to many of the attendees, I think. So thanks for that.
One of the things, Ruben, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, is this isn't like, as we describe it, a linear process where everyone's like experimenting, we're all great and we're going in the right direction, and at some point we'll figure it out. We also, struggle, and there are some challenges that we've passed us and that are facing us. Can you maybe give an example of one of the things that didn't really work out in your time at Eventbrite, and how you would have done it differently, maybe now looking back?
Well, I'm still thinking about what Rob and Eva were saying, and then actually to get to those, you know, how do you break those journeys up is pretty messy, right? Everybody has their own opinion. I recognize that as well. So I first sort of started mapping it out myself, and then I started talking to marketing, and I came to realize that they were using a completely different sort of journey than I was. It's not completely different. It was slightly different, but still it's different. Similarly for CX, user research, they were all sort of using different variations of a similar journey. We also try to map everything into sort of one overall customer journey, and quickly realized that that was actually not the case. And I think we talked about this earlier as well. Segmenting your customers, or, you know, thinking about personas really helped us sort of make separations between the various journeys, and also gave teams more ownership of those journeys. It helped teams to become more effective, basically.
So having one place where everything comes together was something that you weren't able to.
No, and I see somebody just posted a message. Terminology is a nightmare, yeah, and then somebody else talked about this as well. Like the shared reality was just difficult for us to get to. So, you know, a whiteboard is a great tool when you're all in the same office, but especially given, you know, the current situation we're all in, but also, you know, me having teams across the globe, we needed to figure out ways to collaborate and get to that shared reality. So that's like took a lot of iterations to get there. We didn't have something like TheyDo or all the tools that are currently available at that time.
Yeah, it reminds me, Eva, of what we talked about at Zelfstroom also for ownership. That we said, okay, there's a great set of the team energized about all the opportunities, and then when it came to prioritizing, it's like, oh, but we've got our whole backlog already booked. Like, how should I prioritize this against what we already have planned for the next quarter? And then basically your CEO also said, okay, guys, your journey managers or chain managers, they need to be responsible for the whole set and prioritize everything at once. Can you talk a little bit about that? Are you still in the middle of this process, or how is that progressing?
Yeah, we're still learning. Like, we basically started working with roadmaps where we already, for example, had a 20% lane to solve bugs and stuff. And basically, I think thanks to this customer journey project, we realized that's not enough, because you could also use, well, you can call it the 20% lane or whatever it is, but to continuously run experiments and learn what our customers find important.
Yeah.
And how to execute it exactly, we're still learning. We're still improving that every week, every month.
As the ownership, can you maybe speak a little bit about how ownership has played a role in this?
So we don't have a formal customer journey manager. My role was to really set up this way of thinking and to inspire others with this. We decided that our sales, marketing, operations, and customer support managers together are responsible for the complete customer journey. And I totally recognized what Rob just said, that you would think, since our journey is quite simple, it's quite a linear process, you would think that it's not such a hard job. But it was interesting to see what different views people had of the other parts of the customer journey before their part of the journey starts or after their part of the journey ends. So yeah, key for us has been collaborating way more and just organizing structures to do so. Simply things like weekly meetings, and every time get back to this journey picture, get back to the data, get back to what we learned.
I know it sometimes can trigger some tense debates, but I guess those debates have to happen. Yeah, so.
When you start cutting up the journey into smaller chunks, then opportunities also get smaller. Have you found the holy grail in prioritizing and aligning, Rob, at PostNL, where you have a nice structure of those weekly or maybe bi-weekly meetings, or maybe even longer term planning meetings, where you can align all the small and the big chunks of opportunities in those journeys?
The holy grail? No, we haven't found that.
Yeah.
But it really helps if the journey taxonomy must be from the customer perspective, and if you that is really a discussion and debate. But if you win that one, you are already lucky. And the second one is to break it up in the impact. So really get the figures below it, because then you can have a discussion on prioritizing what is the most important. And then the good thing is bring the NPS cost and maybe extra revenue together, and then make it a complete how do you call it, target thing for the company. Because I noticed that a lot of times people were only striving for a high NPS, or other people in other units, they were striving for low costs. So bringing it together, I think that's it's not the holy grail, but it will bring you there.
I think that's a great point, that customer journeys are not only about customer experience, but they are actually about your whole core process, and you can link return of investment, prioritize processes and a customer experience all to it, because in the end you're all doing it for the paying customer. So I really like that that journeys are really the framework, not necessarily only there for customer experience. And so I think that's a great way to put it, Rob. Marloes, I'm curious, what Ruben just said is that sometimes it can be a bit messy about how you organize your journeys. I guess Jochem was saying you guys are in the middle of this now, or do you recognize this point? Is that too early to say something about, or can you already say something about who you're discussing this with at the moment?
Yeah, so we're definitely in the middle of setting up the journeys. We're doing it with the whole team, and what I was just thinking is that we work with OKRs. I don't know if you know about that, but it's objective and key results. And that's already helping the whole company a lot with talking in the same terminology, where what we were just discussing. So starting with the OKRs, we are setting up quarter starts to figure out which journeys we want to develop in the upcoming quarter. So actually, that's the method in how we want to upgrade our persona and client knowledge. So starting with OKRs, and as Rob also told us, that it's really important to share your results. So because you start with your key results and then you develop the journeys which show what movement you see, we think that a lot of colleagues will be super curious about this way of working and adopt the way of working faster. So that's the same as Eva told us. It's not a project. It started as a project, but it's a way of working. And in our smaller team, we're implementing it at the moment, and then we want to broaden it in the whole Bol.com company.
Yeah, what I like about the OKR is a link to the company strategy. So it's not an idea from the customer experience department, but it's basically linking to how you operate.
It cascades. Yeah.
I want to switch gears a little bit and ask you guys, all of you, 4 of you, a few rapid fire questions before we go into the final part of this live stream, where we have a Q&A. There's a lot of questions that have been submitted already. I hope we can get them all. But before we go there, a few questions. I hope you can all answer quickly. I'm going to go for Ruben, Marloes, Rob, Eva, and go and go and go. And I'm curious what you will answer to the first one, which is what do you think is the biggest success factor to get this customer journey management adopted organization-wide? Ruben.
Sponsorship by management.
Sponsorship by management. Nice one. Marloes, what would you say?
Yeah, make people curious with results.
Make people curious with the results. Rob, what do you think is the biggest success factor?
The good people in your company.
Good people in your company. And Eva?
Zest for learning, which is same as good people probably, but
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And if there's like one lesson you took away from the past year, from 2020, obviously it was a little bit of a rough year where everything had to be restructured digitally. But in the context of customer journey management, Ruben, what was the #1 learning you took away from this year?
Everyone has a different opinion. I would say. That's my learning.
Nice. You didn't know that before?
Well, no, I just was confronted with it again this year.
All right. Marloes, what was your number one learning from this year?
Well, actually, by working digital and from home, it's what we already discussed. It's important to have one place to to start. So like they do the tool, look for good tooling, which is available for everyone.
Nice. Rob, what is your learning from this year?
I think it needs a lot of structuring, and that will help really to get it in a broader perspective in the company. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Structure.
Sometimes, but it has to be done.
Messy, but it has to be done. Eva, what was your learning from this year?
I'd say to begin. From the moment that we just had everyone in one room, we finally started working on the things that we actually already knew some months that they were pretty important.
Yeah, wonderful. So I already asked Rob what advice he would give his younger self when he started journey management. So I will not ask it again, but I would like to know, Ruben, what would you say to your younger self when thinking about journey management and starting that up?
Interesting question. Probably to take it seriously. Like even though like in my current role we have 2 teams, which is way less than 15, but I'm still trying to ingrain the importance of thinking about the customer journey from the start. So I would definitely say that to myself again, my younger self.
Your younger self, yes.
Yeah.
Your younger self. Marloes, what do you? Even
Yeah,
though
I
you're
still feel like a young self, but
oh
then
man, that's
I
a great
would,
answer.
yeah, just stay young. Yeah. No, I would say that I just figured something out. Wait a little. I have to think about it.
All right, Eva, what do you think you would say to yourself and looking back at the start of the project? What would you know, what you know now but didn't know then? What would you say to yourself?
Well, I think the last few months just made me realize more that our customers are the reason that we exist as a company. So if we really want to reach our mission, if we want to speed up the energy transition, the key thing you have to do is listen to your customers.
Oh, that's a nice one. Often neglected. I mean, we're in the domain of CX and we often forget that the C is actually customer, right? I love that. Marloes?
What I wanted to say, yeah, it's not a side business. Maybe that's the thing I want to tell myself. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes from project customer journey to customer journey, like Eva also said. Nice. We have like 10 minutes left, and we have heard about actually like the tip of the iceberg, how customer journey management gets done at these companies. And today also marks the beginning of our pro panel, and we're actually creating a community of experts. And it's not only vital to work for our companies to work this way and our clients, but also to accelerate faster. We can learn from each other. So on January 27th, there's a next session with new speakers. We'll announce that later. But we also would like to invite you guys, the people at home, everyone, to join us beforehand in our pro panel. So expect roundtable discussions, exchange of ideas, and co-creation of this new movement. So I would like to ask, before we go into the Q&A, are you responsible for customer journey management in your company? Or will you be responsible for this daunting task? And would you like to be involved in this topic? And would you like to know more? You can join our pro panel, and we can let us know if you would like to join us in this coming year to really get customer journey management in a framework and get it done in all the organizations that we work in. So you can vote now if you want. You can say no thank you, or I don't want to do it, but I know someone else who wants. But if you're interested, let us know by answering yes, or maybe tell me more, and we'll reach out to you after this webinar so you can join us on the start of this tricky endeavor that we're all also curious and excited about.
And then maybe add, Jochem, that we are planning to make this a series, as Jochem already indicated. So first one in January, but we intend to have a series of at least 4 or 5, and if it's a real success, maybe continue to really start iterating with new fresh speakers and also shape this framework as we go along. So we'd love for you guys to stay in touch and share experiences so that we can help each other. Because you can see already from today's panel there's so many recognitions and learnings from each other that people can benefit from. We'd like to keep that energy alive.
I love that, Harald. Thank you. We have a lot of questions coming in from the audience, and I'll see if I can take most of them. And I'm going to work from first in, first out to be a little bit fair. One of the questions from Gerben Bush is like, does it mean that marketing is in the lead when it comes to doing this digital transformation? And I know, Marloes, you are coming from marketing. I also think I know your answer, but maybe, do you think marketing should be in the lead in this whole transformative movement?
Yeah, well, I think that we are a department which is really keen on doing good things for the user and the client. So yeah, I think it's a good place to start. Yeah. Good
place to start. Does anyone in our panel have a different opinion, or do you think marketing is a great place to start?
Yeah, for us, it's not. We made the fundamental decision that, of course, in marketing there's some specific expertise. For example, we have a great brand manager that helps us to make sure that all communication to our customers really is in line with our brand. But it was an important decision to say that marketing, sales, operations, and customer support together are responsible for the whole journey.
Yeah, I agree with Eva. Like for us, it came from product, because there was like a desire from product to get clarity on customer journeys. But I'm generally not a fan of shared ownership, but in our case, we decided on sort of having product and marketing co-own the journeys.
Does that ring a bell for you, Rob, as well? Or I would say, no, that's totally different at how we did it at PostNL.
I'm a bit, it depends which company it is, but I think in marketing lost a little bit its glance to really fight for the customer. So it needed some new blood, actually, to be honest.
You needed some, where was the new blood coming from?
Well, the new blood is really coming from like service designers. They really strive, it's in the DNA of these people that they always think of the customer first. That's how they are educated, and well, it really needed new blood.
Yeah. Another question from Hesra Franke. I think this one is nice for Ruben, as it relates to what you just said. It's like, coming from an unstructured multi-channel approach, different touch points all over the place, how do we make sure that channels talk to each other and that we use the right channels for the right audiences? I think this is kind of an internal versus external thing, but let's see if you can answer it a little bit for us. Hang on, I'm muting you.
You're muting me. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a difficult question. There's no right answer, I would say, in this case. Like just from my experience, we divided those things between marketing and product, so different channels relating to those different departments as well. I'm actually going to look at other panelists to see if they have a better answer than I have.
So the question is, when you have a multi-channel approach, how can we make sure that channels talk to each other? But maybe the answer is already kind of out in the air, which is like the journey goes across all those channels per default. And now that it is visible with all our digital tools available, we are automatically trying to connect them.
I think that's a good point, Jochem, that once you have those journeys mapped out and you say they go across all the channels, it actually can trigger a discussion with the technology and the systems below it, how you unify that more. And I think that's not something that you fix overnight, but that's definitely something that can trigger that conversation about how you have more unified experience instead of having a more fragmented experience across channels.
Yes, it flips. So before it was process leading and determining how the journey should look. Now it's actually the journey above determining how the process internally should be run to make it one consistent experience. One other question. I don't see the name here, but this is a nice one. If parts of your organization are not yet customer-centric enough, it can be debatable what that is, how to avoid journey management becoming process management?
I think you just gave the answer. Start with the journey itself. Like if you design the service blueprint and start with the customer point of view and then translate that to what internal processes we need, I think you can avoid that trap.
Yeah, I think language is also an important factor. How do you navigate these conversations? I think, Rob, does data play a part in this? And you mentioned it before, like you want to measure and show actually why it's important. Does that help or make it even more fuzzy if you really start to help other people in your organization think customer-centric?
No, I really think that you have to help a lot of departments to understand what customer centricity is and how it works, and helping them with doing research with customers, and after they've seen it and how it helps them, they really they don't want to get rid of it anymore. So yeah,
that makes sense. There's a.
I agree with Rob, and then there's another question about this as well. How do you? Sorry, there's a bit of delay.
Please go again.
No, I was just saying I completely agree with what Rob is saying. There's another question about earning the heart of leadership, and for me, using data really helped as well. Also using qualitative data, although it might be sort of anecdotal, but it really helped sort of even showing the anecdotes on a screen for management to sort of get them aware of what actually how our customers are thinking and how we can improve. So same thing for us.
I know that Marloes actually use the personas, the definition of their personas, to actually tag them in BigQuery, their big data analytics tool. Can you speak to that, Marloes? What the benefits of doing that?
Exactly. So it's making it super easy to access the data, actually. So big data is something everybody can use at bol.com. So you can figure out which partners or which persona in an instant. And that helps with other business intelligence of other departments to be able to reach out to the right partners in their projects in a very effortless way, actually.
Wonderful. I'm going to sneak in one more question. We're going to run out of time almost, but I liked this a lot to end our discussion and to get back to the center of gravity of the drawing Herman is making. And the question is, how do you get a mutual accepted conceptual center for our customer journey? It's quite a mouthful. Rob, can you speak to that one?
One more time, please.
How do you get a mutual accepted conceptual center for a customer journey? So basically, it sounds like how do you get your whole organization to agree on this is it?
Yeah, it's I cannot answer that one. That's really difficult.
All right, Harald, maybe you want to give it a go.
No, I think that the journey can really help to bring disciplines together. Yeah, so like it is almost like the structure that you can say, okay, we get this from big data, we get this from metrics, we get this from customer interviews and research, and we get this from learnings that we see in different channels, and then it actually triggers that debate, and it actually helps you focus as an organization, and then as a result, that conceptual center should start to emerge. And I think that's why disciplines have to collaborate on customer journeys, is that realization has to emerge. That is not some brilliant dude that has a great idea all of a sudden. It is something that disciplines have to discuss to get, and then the real realization of what is the actual essence of what we're doing in our service that we should focus around. And I think that's where customer journeys, actually customer perspective, helps you realize that. And I think that's why we all love this tool, I think. So I think that's a process, not something you can start with.
Thanks, Harald. I think you summed it up pretty good for today. I'm going to thank our guests, Ruben, Marloes, Rob, Eva. Thank you for joining us for this first session in redefining customer journey management. We're going to share the big visual with everyone who participated today, who had great questions or who just joined us at home. It is our mission to help accelerate this change in companies and in 2021 for all of us. There are people who want to join our pro panel. If you want to reach out for more questions or your questions weren't answered, we're very sorry, but January 27, we will be back. And until that time, till we meet again. Bye-bye.